inches. So then we took 24 plus 6 gave us 30. So what would you need to do to study for that question? Well, what you could do is say that because it's not going to be the same, you would just need to first talk about, we have to know that 1 foot equals 12 inches. That's the first thing. And you could change any of these measurements here to be able to switch that over and be able to convert those. Okay, so the next one is a dividing one, being able to divide. I've shown them what I did on this one. I showed them that I looked at this and knew that these were multiples of 3. So I showed them that I kind of knew that they would go in evenly. And so that was one way that I did it, kind of a shorthand. But then I also did it long division over here. But the main thing to remember is that if the 3 will not go into the zeros, is to keep that 0 up here as a placeholder. That's a big thing that a lot of friends forget to put that 0 up there. This question asked for them to find the triangle that had a right angle in it, and that was that one. So that's all on the first page. This one here, of course, it doesn't matter which fraction they come up with. They just ask them to come up with an equivalent or equal fraction to 1/2. So they can come up with any variety of a fraction that's equal to 1/2. As you see here, this is another example. Of course, it may not be on your child's study guide, but I did it. 1 pound equals 16 ounces. And once again, I set it up as the 1 pound, 16 ounces. 2 pounds would equal, and you see how I multiplied again, that would be the 32 ounces. This is one where we've started working on, and what I've told them is to use the kind of guides as 90 degrees. We know what that looks like. And then the guide of half of 90 is 45. And then they give them a variety of measurements. This one, they said 35, and I think they used 65 and 10. And they had to choose between would this angle most likely be 35, 10, or 65. And so what I was showing here is that 65 is above 45. 10 is just off of the baseline, so it would most likely be 35 degrees. So if you were going to study that with your child, then you could kind of pick a random degree for an angle and have them decide which one it would most likely be. What they should be doing is comparing it to 90 degrees and 45 degrees to decide which one it's closest to. On this next one, they are subtracting using thousands. So you could pick any type of thousands number and subtract it, and work on borrowing. That's something that we still struggle with. I did show them a way today, and I'll show you real quick. So this was 5,000 minus 1,997, which I'm sure this is the way that you did it. That's the way I was taught. One other way to do it is if you had, instead of having to borrow, you could take, instead of 5,000, you could take 1 away from each one of the numbers. So 1 less than 5,000 would be 4,999, and then 1 less than 1,997 would be 1,996. So all I did was take 1 away from each one of those numbers, and I had to take 1 away from each one to keep the values and the differences the same. By doing that, I've taken away the need to have to borrow. So now 9 minus 6 is 3, 9 minus 9 is 0, 9 minus 9 is 0, and 4 minus 1 is 3. I do get the same answer. I'm just having not to have to borrow this time. And I know it's crazy, but for some of those that struggle with the borrowing, just knowing that they have a method that they don't have to borrow makes it where they kind of feel like, I don't have to borrow, and it kind of takes the pressure off of them. So the way that they do that is that they just have to remember that they have to take 1 away from top and 1 away from bottom. So that's one way. So that's just one little trick that I had. This next question is here. And anytime that you see a question that has a line underneath one place and then a dot, that is a rounding question. So the line is to signify the place value that the question or the number is to be rounded to. The dot is what I call the number that's doing the work. So in this question, we would be rounding the number to the nearest 100. The tens place would be doing the work, and the 5 would round the 6 up, which makes it go to 7. I would have said that everything behind it goes to 0. So we have 1,700. Of course, anytime you practice that, you could change the numbers to any type of number you would want to. And I'm showing you this so that whenever you look at it with your student, your child, that you can look at their study guide with them and that you'll know what kind of our symbols and our cues are so that you'll have an idea how to study with your child. Okay, so number 7 on this page is an area question. I usually, if it's a type of question like this, I will have a definition or the equation down here. So area equals length times width squared. I may have put it over here. And this one was 7 times 3 equals 21 inches squared. A lot of the kids wanted to do the perimeter. That's something that they struggle with. Once we learn perimeter, they want to go back and forth between perimeter and area to remember which one they were doing. On number 10, this question's worded kind of weird. Multiples are the numbers that you hear when you skip count, but they didn't ask for the multiples of 15. They asked for the which numbers would you hear, which multiples would you hear 15 in? So if you skip counted by 1, you would hear 15. If you skip counted by 3, you would hear 15, or 5 and 15. But there would be no other numbers that you would hear the multiple 15. On number 12, and this is a Cuban acing question, and I did not, my study guide was done before we actually did the cubing acing, but I do have part of it here to do the Cuban acing with it. So it's kind of just written a little bit differently, so I'm going to show it to you. But what Cuban acing is it's kind of a way to help your student organize their thoughts of a word problem, because sometimes the words kind of make them kind of just get paranoid about, what do I do? I don't know how to pull the important words out of the question. So if they were able to actually write on the question, they could circle the numbers, underline the question, box the important words, evaluate the question, the problem, answer statement, compute, solve, check, explain when asked, and snake the answer. Okay, so what I have, the numbers for this question were 125, 134, 75, and 76. Okay, so the question was, and I abbreviate, how many, which will be a capital M. Anytime you see that, if your child abbreviates the way that I do, a capital M is going to be how many, how much. Total videos will have been rented. Then for the box the important words, that is what is really important, because they're learning how to pull out those important words from a question. So total. So ask your child, what does total mean? And that total, to evaluate what that word means, should mean add, or they should have that addition sign. And that's important that they had that. The answer statement, and of course, whenever they do it at first, it won't have that answer there. There will be blank videos rented. Of course, now it would be time to compute, solve, check. So what they had is they had in this question, it was given like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then they said if this kiosk rented the same amount of videos the next 4 days, how many videos would be rented? Total videos would be rented. So what you would do is you would add that total, you would add these 4 days together. And then for group 2, it's the same amount. So you would add those two together, and then that's that total amount. So to study for that, you could change those video amounts any way you wanted to for those days, and then have your child work on what the total meant. So you can change that up however you choose to. On this last page, we have, this question was talking about how many, what angle would it be if an angle turned through 67 1-degree angles? So what I talked to them about is if it turned through 1 degree, that would be 1 degrees. At 2 degrees, it would be a 2-degree angle. So we just decided, we were talking about how that if it turns through 67 1-degree angles, then that's going to be a 67-degree angle. Okay, so this last one. This is called a matrix problem. And I know you've been seeing these, and I know you probably have no idea what they are. These are very similar to an area model of multiplication. I know you have probably never even attempted to try to solve multiplication this way. I get it. I understand. I know it's crazy. The purpose of this is to give some children don't know how to multiply two-digit by two-digit multiplication. Some children really grasp this idea. Some children do not. I do think that it is a great way for some children. I think that it is good to have multiple ways to multiply. So I do think that it is beneficial to understand and know multiple ways. I think once they understand that they are finding the area of each one of these, and once they grasp that concept, that it really does make sense. I think they write so big is one of the problems that's hard for them. These boxes are kind of small. So I don't know if that's the problem. They tend to not be able to read their handwriting. That's another problem. Okay, so let me explain how you do it. So you take the number 35 and 22. You break it down into what we call expanded form. That's where you break it down in place values. So 30 and 5, 20 and 2. Then you're going to multiply. These numbers go across, these numbers come down. So what you're taking is 30 and 20 and multiplying those two together for this box. So that would be 600. This number times this number is 100. 5 times 2 for this box. And 30 times 2 for this box. If you were doing just what we used to do for an area model, it would just add straight across, come down, and you get your answer. This matrix just gives you one extra way to double check your work, okay? So we're going to add straight across. 600 plus 100 is 700. 60 plus 70 is, or 60 plus 10 is 70. 700 plus 70 is 770. Coming straight down, 100 plus 10 is 110. 600 plus 60 is 660. And to double check, this should add to get this as well. They should all add to get the same one. So I know it's crazy. I know it's a little different. It's just a different way to multiply is all it is. If you're practicing with your kid, just give them a 2-digit by 2-digit number and have them practice it. Practice writing neatly. Practice putting the place values in here, having them put the place values together. Believe me, I do one every single day. I try to tell them to do zeros first. 0, 0, there's 2 zeros. 3 times 2 is 6. 1 0, 2 times 5 is 10, is the way that I put them in the box. I hope this helps. That's all that was on this study guide. Also, I don't know if I mentioned that if it was on my study guide, it should have been on your child's study guide. If you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and let me know if you ever have any problems. Thanks.